Dr. Yuna stared at the readings on her scanner and frowned. The signals coming from the damaged ship made no sense at all. Her forearms moved quickly across the control panel as she tried to understand what she was seeing. "Commander Thex, you need to see this," she called to her superior officer. The tall Krathari warrior walked over on his 6 legs, his rock-like skin gleaming under the station lights. "What is it, Doctor?" "There's a ship out there. It's badly damaged and drifting toward the asteroid field. But the life signs inside are completely unknown to our databases." Commander Thex looked at the scanner readings. His yellow eyes narrowed as he studied the data. "Unknown? That's impossible. We have records of every intelligent species in this sector." "That's what I thought too. But look at these readings. The biological signatures don't match anything in our files, not even close." The Galactic Council Research Station had been monitoring this quiet corner of space for over 200 years. They had cataloged every form of life within 50 light years. Nothing surprised them anymore. Until now. "Send a rescue team," Commander Thex ordered. "Follow first contact protocols. We need to know what we're dealing with." Dr. Yuna gathered her team quickly. As the station's lead xenobiologist, she had studied hundreds of alien species. She felt excited and nervous at the same time. A truly unknown species was the discovery of a lifetime. The rescue ship approached the damaged vessel carefully. Through the viewports, they could see that the unknown ship was small and primitive-looking. Its hull was made of simple metal alloys. The design was basic compared to most galactic civilizations. "Scanning the interior now," reported Kayla, the team's sensor specialist. Her blue skin shimmered as she concentrated on the readings. "I'm detecting 5 life forms. They appear to be unconscious, maybe injured." "Any signs of dangerous technology?" asked Commander Thex through the communication system. "Negative. Their weapon systems are very basic. Projectile-based, not energy weapons. Their engines use chemical fuel, not quantum drives. This technology is centuries behind galactic standard." Dr. Yuna found this puzzling. How had such a primitive species managed to reach this far into space? The nearest inhabited systems were dozens of light years away. "Docking now," announced the pilot. "Preparing to board." The rescue team put on their environmental suits and entered the unknown ship. The air inside was thin and contained a mixture of gases that would be toxic to most species. Dr. Yuna's suit automatically filtered the air so she could breathe safely. The interior of the ship was cramped and simple. Everything looked like it had been built by hand rather than manufactured by advanced machines. Tools and equipment were scattered around, suggesting the crew had been working desperately to repair something before they lost consciousness. "Over here," called Hexa, the team medic. She was examining one of the unconscious beings. Dr. Yuna hurried over and saw her first human. The creature was smaller than she had expected. Its skin was pale and soft-looking, not armored or scaled like most intelligent species. It had only 2 arms and 2 legs, which seemed inefficient for complex tasks. Its head contained 2 small eyes, 1 nose and 1 mouth. Very basic sensory equipment. "The bone density is surprisingly low," Hexa reported as she ran her medical scanner over the being. "Muscle mass is minimal compared to body size. This species seems physically weak. Maybe they evolved on a low-gravity world," suggested Dr. Yuna. But something felt wrong about that explanation. The ship's artificial gravity was set to a level that would be normal for most standard worlds. Hexa moved to examine the other unconscious beings. "They're all similar in basic structure, but I'm seeing significant individual variations. Different sizes, different skin colors, different facial features. Are we sure these are all the same species?" This was another puzzle. Most intelligent species showed very little individual variation. Evolution tended to produce optimal forms that were consistent across a population. "Let's get them back to the medical bay," Dr. Yuna decided. "We need to stabilize them before we can ask any questions." As the rescue team prepared to move the unconscious beings, one of them suddenly opened its eyes. Dr. Yuna jumped back in surprise. The creature's eyes were brown, a color she had never seen in any sentient being's eyes before. The being looked around slowly, taking in the sight of the rescue team. Instead of showing fear or aggression, it seemed calm. It tried to sit up, winced in pain, then looked directly at Dr. Yuna. "Thank you," it said in a language that Dr. Yuna's universal translator immediately began analyzing. The translator worked quickly, breaking down the sounds and matching them to meaning. Within seconds, it had enough data to provide basic communication. "You're welcome," Dr. Yuna replied carefully. "We're here to help. What are you called?" "My name is Do-hyun," the being said. "Are my friends okay? Are they hurt?" Dr. Yuna was surprised by the question. Most species, when rescued from a life-threatening situation, would ask about their own condition first. Basic survival instinct demanded self-preservation above all else. "They appear to be unconscious but stable," she answered. "We need to get all of you to our medical facility. You're injured and need treatment." Do-hyun tried to stand up, moving very slowly. He was clearly in pain, but he ignored it as he looked at each of his unconscious companions. "Can you help them first? I think Minho hit his head pretty hard when the ship lost power." "Sir, you need medical attention immediately," Hexa interrupted. "Your vital signs show significant trauma." "I'll be fine," Do-hyun said. "Just help them." First, Dr. Yuna exchanged glances with her team members. This behavior made no sense from an evolutionary standpoint. Every intelligent species put individual survival before group welfare when facing immediate danger. It was a basic rule of biology. "We will help everyone," Dr. Yuna assured him. "But you need treatment too." "Okay," Do-hyun agreed. "But stay close to them. They might be scared when they wake up in a strange place." As the rescue team transported the beings back to the station, Dr. Yuna found herself studying Do-hyun carefully. Despite his obvious pain and weakness, he kept asking about his companions. He showed genuine concern for beings who were not even blood relatives. Back in the medical bay, Hexa ran detailed scans on all 5 beings. The results were unlike anything in the medical databases. "Doctor, these readings don't make sense," Hexa reported privately. "Their bodies seem designed for a high-gravity, high-stress environment. But they're so fragile. Their bones should break under normal conditions." "What do you mean?" "Look at this. Their muscle fibers are incredibly dense and efficient. Their cardiovascular systems can operate at extreme levels. Their brains show neural complexity beyond most species we've studied, but their skin has no natural armor. Their bones are hollow like a bird's. Their sensory organs are limited compared to most intelligent life." Dr. Yuna studied the data with growing confusion. "It's like they evolved to be both incredibly tough and incredibly fragile at the same time." "That's impossible," Hexa said. "Evolution doesn't work that way." As the other beings slowly regained consciousness, Dr. Yuna watched their behavior carefully. Each one's first question was about the others. Each one tried to help despite being injured themselves. Each one thanked the rescue team before asking about their own condition. By the end of the day, Dr. Yuna sat in her office staring at her initial report. She had studied alien biology for 30 years. She had seen species that could survive in the vacuum of space and others that could regenerate, lost limbs. She had cataloged beings that could see across the entire electromagnetic spectrum, and others that could communicate telepathically. But she had never encountered anything like these beings who called themselves humans. Her report began with a question that would soon echo throughout the galaxy. What even is a human? 3 months had passed since the humans arrived at the research station. Dr. Yuna had sent her initial report to the Galactic Council, and the response had been immediate. The galaxy's most respected xenobiologists were now gathering to study these impossible beings. Dr. Ketol of the Hegemony stood in the observation deck, watching through reinforced glass as one of the humans worked in the engineering bay. The human called Minho was bent over a broken quantum drive, tools scattered around him like toys. "This makes no sense," Dr. Ketol muttered to his assistant. His 6 tentacles writhed with frustration as he studied the readings on his tablet. "He has no formal training in quantum mechanics. Our databases show that his species has barely discovered faster than light travel. Yet he's repairing a drive that our best engineers couldn't fix." On the other side of the glass, Minho wiped sweat from his forehead and continued working. He had been at it for 6 hours straight, taking apart components that most engineers wouldn't dare touch without extensive safety protocols. "Sir," his assistant said nervously, "perhaps we should stop him. If he makes a mistake, the quantum field could collapse and destroy half the station." Dr. Katal's skin changed from blue to purple, showing his uncertainty. "I want to stop him, but look at his confidence. He moves like he knows exactly what he's doing." Minho suddenly straightened up and smiled. He pressed a button on the control panel, and the quantum drive hummed to life. The energy readings were perfect. Better than perfect, actually. The drive was now operating at 98% efficiency, which was higher than factory specifications. "Impossible," Dr. Katal whispered. When they asked Minho how he had fixed the drive, his answer made no sense at all. "I just looked at it and could see what was wrong," he said through the universal translator. "The energy flow felt blocked, so I opened up the pathways." "Felt blocked?" Dr. Katal repeated. "Quantum energy doesn't have feelings." Minho shrugged. "I don't know how to explain it better. I just knew what needed to be done." Dr. Katal added another note to his growing file of impossible human behaviors. In the medical wing, Dr. Yuna was observing another human who defied all logic. Jiwan had volunteered to help in the station's hospital, even though she had no training in alien medicine. Yet somehow she was succeeding where trained professionals had failed. "Patient 347 is responding well to treatment," reported Nurse Vex, her crystalline body chiming softly as she moved. The human's treatment plan shouldn't have worked, but the Nexari's fever broke within hours. Dr. Yuna watched through the medical bay window as Jiwan checked on a young Krathari patient. The child had been sick for weeks with a condition that puzzled the medical staff. Traditional treatments weren't working. "What did she do differently?" Dr. Yuna asked. "She said the medicine dosage felt wrong for someone so young. She reduced it by half and added a nutritional supplement that isn't even part of our treatment protocols. It shouldn't have worked." But it had worked. Just like it had worked for the hegemony soldier with the mysterious infection, and the Nexari diplomat with the unknown poisoning, and 6 other patients that the regular medical staff had struggled to help. When Dr. Yuna asked Jiwan to explain her methods, the human's answer was just as puzzling as Minho's had been. "I look at them and try to feel what they need," Jiwan said. "I know that sounds strange, but sick people have a certain feeling about them. When they start getting better, that feeling changes." "You're saying you can sense illness through some kind of empathic ability?" Dr. Yuna asked. "I don't think it's anything special," Jiwan replied. "All humans do this to some degree. We just pay attention to small signs and trust our instincts." Dr. Yuna made another note in her files. Human instincts seem to operate on principles that science couldn't explain. The strangest case was happening in the psychology department. Dr. Vorth had been trying to understand human mental processes for weeks, but every test produced contradictory results. "Subject shows extreme endurance capabilities," Dr. Vorth dictated to his recording device. Human designation Hyunwoo completed physical stress tests that would exhaust most military-trained beings. Heart rate remained stable, breathing remained controlled, showed no signs of fatigue after 6 hours of continuous activity. But that wasn't the strange part. The strange part had happened afterward. Dr. Vorth continued his report. Immediately, after demonstrating superhuman endurance, subject collapsed from exhaustion when he learned that a Nexari child in the medical bay was dying. Subject had never met this child before, has no biological or social connection to it. Yet he spent the entire night sitting beside its bed, providing comfort. This behavior made no evolutionary sense. Hyunwoo had proven he could push his body beyond normal limits when necessary, but he had voluntarily exhausted himself to help a being from a completely different species, gaining nothing in return. When Dr. Vorth asked him why, Hyunwoo's answer was simple and baffling. She was scared and alone. No one should die scared and alone. The most disturbing case was being studied by the station's head philosopher, Dr. Nexus. He was trying to understand the human called Salmon, who had been asking questions that were keeping the entire philosophy department awake at night. She's documenting our civilization, Dr. Nexus explained to the gathered scientists during their weekly meeting. But her observations are revealing patterns that we never noticed ourselves. What kind of patterns? Asked Dr. Yuna. She asked why the hegemony builds their cities in perfect geometric shapes when their art is completely organic and flowing. No one had ever thought to question that before. When we investigated, we found that it represents a fundamental split in their cultural psychology that explains centuries of internal conflicts. Dr. Nexus brought up another example. She noticed that Nexari trade agreements always include specific clauses about waste disposal, even when the traded goods produce no waste. When we looked into it, we discovered that waste disposal represents social shame in Nexari culture. They include those clauses as a way of avoiding embarrassment, not for practical reasons. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. She's identifying cultural patterns that our most advanced AI systems missed, Dr. Nexus continued. Patterns that explain behaviors we've wondered about for centuries. How is she doing this? When they asked Soman to explain her methods, her answer was frustratingly simple. I just watch and listen, she said. People usually tell you what they're really thinking even when they don't mean to. You just have to pay attention to the things they don't say as much as the things they do say. Dr. Yuna compiled all these reports into her weekly summary for the Galactic Council. Every page raised more questions than it answered. The humans seemed to operate on principles that violated everything science understood about intelligence and behavior. They made intuitive leaps that bypassed logical reasoning but somehow reached correct conclusions. They showed emotional responses that should have been evolutionary disadvantages but somehow helped them succeed. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to understand other species better than those species understood themselves. As Dr. Yuna finished her report, she realized that 3 months of study had only deepened the mystery. The question that had started her investigation still had no answer. What, even is a human? And why did everyone who spent time around them start asking that same question about themselves? The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. 200 representatives from across the galaxy sat in their designated seats, all staring at the holographic display that Dr. Yuna had just activated. The data floating in the center of the room defied everything they thought they knew about evolution and biology. Honored counselors, Dr. Yuna began, her forearms gesturing toward the display. After 6 months of intensive study, I must present findings that challenge our fundamental understanding of how intelligent life develops. Counselor Vex of the hegemony leaned forward in his seat, his tentacles curled with skepticism. Dr. Yuna, your preliminary reports have been unusual, but surely you're not suggesting that basic evolutionary principles don't apply to these humans. That's exactly what I'm suggesting, Dr. Yuna replied calmly. These beings shouldn't exist as a viable species, yet here they are. She manipulated the holographic display, showing a 3-dimensional model of Earth. The planet appeared as a blue and green sphere, looking deceptively peaceful from space. This is their homeworld, Dr. Yuna continued. What you're seeing is one of the most hostile environments ever cataloged for intelligent life development. The display changed, showing Earth's violent history. Massive asteroids slammed into the surface. Volcanoes erupted across entire continents. Ice ages froze the planet solid, then warming periods melted everything back to swamps. Counselor Thrain of the Nexari Collective stood up, his crystalline body chiming with disbelief. Surely you're exaggerating. No species could evolve intelligence under such conditions. The radiation levels alone should have prevented complex life, added Counselor Kess of the Outer Rim. Most planets with half that level of cosmic radiation are classified as uninhabitable. Dr. Yuna nodded grimly. According to our models, Earth should be a dead world. The asteroid impacts, volcanic activity, radiation bombardment, and climate swings should have sterilized it multiple times over. Yet somehow, life not only survived, but thrived. She changed the display again, showing the evolutionary tree of Earth's dominant species. The path leading to humans was marked with dozens of extinction events that should have ended their development. They evolved as persistence hunters, Dr. Yuna explained. Instead of developing natural weapons like claws or fangs, they learned to chase their prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Instead of growing thick hides or natural armor, they developed the ability to sweat, which allowed them to run for hours in extreme heat. The council chamber filled with murmurs of confusion. Persistence hunting was known among primitive species, but no advanced civilization had evolved from such a strange starting point. But here's what makes no sense, Dr. Yuna continued. Most successful species develop specialized traits: sharp teeth for carnivores, enhanced senses for nocturnal hunters, thick shells for defensive species. Humans developed none of these. The display showed comparative anatomy charts. Humans looked pathetically weak compared to every other intelligent species in the galaxy. Their teeth are flat and weak. Their senses are limited to narrow ranges. Their bodies have no natural defenses. They can't even see in the dark without artificial light. By every measure we use to evaluate species' survival potential, humans should have gone extinct millions of years ago. Counselor Vex's skin color shifted to deep purple, indicating extreme skepticism. Dr. Yuna, with respect, your data must be incomplete. These humans clearly survived and developed space travel. They must have significant advantages that you're missing. That's what we thought too, Dr. Yuna replied, so we decided to test them. She activated a new section of the display, showing video recordings from the research station. The council watched in stunned silence as the tests unfolded. The first video showed Taehyun in an environmental chamber. The temperature was set to -40 degrees, cold enough to kill most known species within minutes. Taehyun was wearing only basic clothing, not a full environmental suit. He survived for 3 hours, Dr. Yuna narrated. His body temperature dropped to levels that should have caused brain death. Instead, he remained conscious and alert. When we asked him how he felt, he said he was a bit chilly. The next video showed the same human in a chamber heated to 60 degrees Celsius. Again, he survived conditions that would have been lethal to most species. We tested him in low-oxygen environments equivalent to high-altitude mountains. We exposed him to radiation levels found near dying stars. We subjected him to pressure, changes that simulate deep ocean conditions. He adapted to all of them. Counselor Thrain's chiming grew more agitated. That's impossible. No single organism can survive such varied extreme conditions. We thought so too, Dr. Yuna agreed. So we tested his problem-solving abilities. The next video showed Taehyun in a room filled with alien technology he had never seen before. Complex machines from a dozen different civilizations were scattered, around each requiring different operating principles. We gave him 1 hour to activate as many devices as possible, Dr. Yuna explained. He had no training, no instruction manuals, and no prior exposure to any of these technologies. The council watched as Taehyun moved from machine to machine, studying each one for only a few minutes before somehow figuring out how to operate it. Within the hour, he had successfully activated 68% of the devices. How? Whispered Counselor Kess. We asked him the same question, Dr. Yuna replied. His answer was that he looked for patterns and made educated guesses. When we analyzed his approach, we found that he was making intuitive leaps that bypassed normal logical processes but somehow reached correct conclusions. The final test video was the most disturbing of all. It showed Yunbi, another human, connected to the Council's most advanced psychological analysis equipment. The machines were designed to map the complete mental state of any intelligent being. Watch the readouts carefully, Dr. Yuna instructed. The displays around Yunbi showed brain activity patterns that made no sense. Multiple contradictory emotional states were active simultaneously. Areas of her brain that should have been mutually exclusive were operating together. She's experiencing fear and excitement at the same time, Dr. Yuna explained. Sadness and joy, despair and hope. According to our understanding of psychology, this should cause immediate mental breakdown. Instead, Yunbi appeared completely normal on the video. She was even smiling and making jokes with the research team. The testing equipment overloaded trying to map her mental state, Dr. Yuna continued. Our most advanced AI systems couldn't process the contradictions in her thought patterns. The council chamber erupted in heated discussion. Representatives argued with each other in dozens of different languages, their universal translators, working overtime to keep up. Councillor Vex called for order, his voice booming across the chamber. Dr. Yuna, what you're suggesting is that these humans represent some kind of evolutionary impossibility, that they break the fundamental rules of how life develops. That's exactly what I'm suggesting, Dr. Yuna replied. And there's more. She activated the final part of her presentation. This showed analysis of human DNA compared to other intelligent species. Their genetic code is more complex than it should be for their apparent simplicity, she explained. They carry genetic information for traits they don't even use, backup systems for backup systems, redundancies that serve no obvious purpose. What does that mean? Asked Counselor Thrain. It means they're designed for survival in ways we don't understand. Their genetics suggest they can adapt to environments and situations that haven't even happened yet. Dr. Yuna looked around the chamber at the shocked faces of the galactic representatives. Honored counselors, I believe we're dealing with something unprecedented in the universe's evolutionary history. A species that doesn't just adapt to survive. A species that seems built to thrive in impossible circumstances. The chamber fell silent again as the implications sank in. The question isn't just what even is a human, Dr. Yuna concluded. The question is whether humans represent a new kind of intelligence that the universe has never seen before. News of the humans spread across the galaxy faster than quantum communications could carry it. Within weeks of Dr. Yuna's presentation to the Galactic Council, every major civilization was talking about the impossible beings from the Death World, called Earth. The reactions were as varied as the species themselves. On the military world of Krex Prime, General Vorthak studied combat reports with growing alarm. His soldiers were the finest warriors in the galaxy, trained from birth to fight and conquer. Yet the tactical analyses coming from the research station made his blood run cold. Sir, the human tactical assessments don't make sense, reported his aide, a young officer whose scales were still bright with youth. They've analyzed our historical battles and identified winning strategies that we completely missed. General Vorthak's massive claws tapped against his desk as he read the reports. Show me the Colaris campaign analysis. The holographic display, activated, showing the famous battle that had been studied in military academies for 3 centuries. It was considered a perfect example of strategic warfare, with the Krex forces achieving total victory through superior planning and execution. The human called Wu Jin reviewed our battle records. The aide continued. He identified 17 points where we could have achieved the same victory with 60% fewer casualties. Impossible, General Vorthak growled. Our best strategists planned that campaign for 2 years. That's what we thought too, sir. But when we ran his suggestions through our battle computers, they confirmed his calculations. His strategies would have worked. General Vorthak stood up, his 7-foot frame casting a shadow across the room. How long did this human study our records? 3 days, sir. The general's claws extended involuntarily. 3 days to improve upon centuries of military wisdom. It was either impossible or terrifying. On the other side of the galaxy, the collective was having similar discussions. Their civilization was built on pure logic and mathematical precision. Emotions were considered primitive remnants of less evolved thinking. But the human philosopher Jiho was challenging everything they believed. The human speaks of concepts that have no logical foundation, reported Drone 447 to the Central Processing Unit. Yet these concepts seem to produce measurable results in problem-solving and social cooperation. The CPU processed this information for several microseconds, an eternity in collective terms. Explain these concepts. The human calls them hope, compassion, and sacrifice. According to our analysis, hope is belief in positive outcomes without supporting evidence. Compassion is concern for other beings that provides no benefit to the individual. Sacrifice is voluntarily accepting loss for no logical gain. These behaviors should lead to extinction, the CPU calculated. Why does this species practice them? That's what we asked the human. His response was illogical but somehow compelling. He said that these behaviors make life worth living, even if they don't make logical sense. The CPU processed this for another Microsecond. Worth living is not a calculable value. That's what we told him, sir. He said that was exactly the point. For the first time in the collective's history, the CPU experienced something it couldn't classify. If it had been human, it might have called the feeling confusion. Meanwhile, on the peaceful world of harmony, the Nexari were struggling with their own revelations about human nature. Sujin had been invited to help resolve a territorial dispute that had lasted for over 200 years. Ambassador Threll floated in his meditation chamber, his crystalline body dim with exhaustion. He had spent decades trying to negotiate peace between the mountain clans and the coastal cities. Every logical solution had failed. The humans solved it in 6 days, he reported to the High Council. 6 days to resolve a conflict that has consumed our finest diplomats for 2 centuries. How? Chimed the council in perfect harmony. She used concepts we had never considered. She called them compromise and empathy. Instead of finding a solution that was logically perfect, she found one that both sides could emotionally accept. Yai. Council's harmonious chiming became discordant with confusion. Emotional acceptance has no basis in law or logic. That's what we thought, Ambassador Threll replied. But both sides agreed to her proposal immediately. They said it felt right, even though it wasn't the most efficient solution. Felt right? The human explained that sometimes the best answer isn't the most logical one. Sometimes the best answer is the one that makes everyone involved feel like they've been heard and respected. The High Council processed this in silence. In their thousands of years of civilization, they had never considered that feelings might be more important than logic in conflict resolution. Back at the research station, Dr. Yuna was discovering that studying humans had unexpected side effects. Her research team was beginning to change in ways that puzzled her. "Doctor, I've been having strange thoughts," reported Dr. Katal during their daily briefing. His tentacles writhed with uncertainty as he spoke. "Yesterday, I saw one of the maintenance workers struggling with a heavy load. Instead of noting it for my efficiency report, I found myself wanting to help him." Dr. Yuna looked up from her data pad. "Wanting to help? That's not typical hegemony behavior. That's what concerns me. We're trained to observe and report, not to interfere. But after watching the humans for months, I keep thinking about their tendency to help others without being asked." "Have you acted on these impulses?" Dr. Katal's skin flushed purple with embarrassment. "Yes. I helped the worker carry his load. When he thanked me, I experienced a sensation I can't classify. It was pleasant." Similar reports were coming from researchers across the station. The Nexari were asking questions about the value of individual choice versus collective harmony. The Krithari were showing concern for beings outside their family, groups. Even the logical collective drones were expressing curiosity about irrational concepts like art and music. The humans seemed to be infecting everyone around them with their impossible way of thinking. Dr. Yuna called an emergency meeting with all the research teams. As she looked around the room at her colleagues, she realized they all looked different somehow. More animated, more curious, more willing to question things they had always accepted without thought. "We need to discuss what's happening to us," she began. "The humans aren't just defying our understanding of biology and evolution. They're changing us." "How is that possible?" asked Dr. Nexus, the station philosopher. "We're simply observing them. We're not adopting their behaviors." "Aren't we?" Dr. Yuna challenged. "When was the last time any of you questioned the fundamental assumptions of your own civilization before the humans arrived?" The room fell silent as everyone considered this. "They're not just impossible beings," Dr. Yuna continued. "They're making us ask impossible questions. Questions about whether logic is always better than emotion, whether individual achievement is more important than group welfare, whether there might be ways of thinking that we've never considered." "What are you suggesting?" Dr. Ketal asked. "I'm suggesting that the humans represent more than just an evolutionary anomaly. They might represent a completely different way of being intelligent. And somehow, just by being around them, we're starting to understand that there are other ways to think and feel and exist." Dr. Yuna looked around the room at her colleagues, seeing the changes in all of them. The question isn't just what even is a human anymore. The question is, what are we becoming by trying to understand them? Outside the meeting room, Nagyong sat quietly in the station's observation lounge, looking out at the stars. She had been listening to the conversations and reports about her species for months now. The other humans found it amusing that the galaxy's greatest minds were so puzzled by ordinary human behavior. But Nagyong understood something the researchers didn't realize yet. The humans weren't changing the aliens by accident. They were doing it on purpose. Because that's what humans did. They saw beings who had never learned to hope or sacrifice or love beyond logic, and they couldn't help but want to share those gifts. Even if it meant turning the galaxy's understanding of intelligence completely upside down. 1 year after first contact, the Galactic Council convened for an emergency session unlike any in their history. Reports were flooding in from across the galaxy, and none of them made sense according to traditional understanding of how civilizations operated. On Krex Prime, General Vorthak's soldiers had begun questioning orders that seemed unnecessarily brutal. Military efficiency had actually improved as troops started working together instead of simply following commands. The collective's drones were asking for individual names and requesting time for personal interests. Productivity had increased by 30% as workers became more engaged with their tasks. The Nexari had begun incorporating emotional considerations into their legal decisions. Crime rates had dropped to the lowest levels in recorded history as citizens felt more connected to their community. Similar reports came from hundreds of worlds. Everywhere humans had been integrated into alien societies, the results were the same. Problems that had existed for centuries were being solved. Social conflicts that seemed impossible to resolve were finding peaceful solutions. Technologies that had stagnated for decades were suddenly advancing rapidly. The galaxy was changing and everyone knew why. Dr. Yuna stood before the assembled council once again, but this time she was not alone. Nagyong, speaking as humanity's unofficial ambassador, stood beside her. After a year of study, the aliens had finally asked the humans to explain themselves. Honored counselors, Nagyong began, her voice calm and steady through the universal translator. You have spent a year trying to understand what makes humans different. You have tested us, studied us, and analyzed us. But you have been asking the wrong question. Counselor Vex leaned forward in his seat. What is the right question? The question isn't what makes a human, Nagyong replied. The question is, what makes any being truly alive? The council chamber buzzed with confused murmurs. Dr. Yuna activated the holographic display, showing the data that had been collected over the past year. What we discovered, Dr. Yuna explained, is that humans didn't evolve to be the strongest or the smartest or the most efficient. They evolved to be the most adaptable, but not just physically adaptable, emotionally and socially adaptable. Nagyong stepped forward. Every species in this galaxy has achieved great things. You have built incredible technologies. You have explored vast distances across space. You have created complex civilizations. But you have all forgotten something important. Along the way, what have we forgotten? Asked Counselor Thrain, his crystalline body chiming with curiosity. You have forgotten how to be vulnerable, Nagyong answered. How to fail and try again. How to hope for things that seem impossible. How to care about beings who can give you nothing in return. She gestured toward the display showing human evolutionary history. Humans survived on Earth not because we were strong, but because we were willing to be weak. We formed groups not because it was efficient, but because we needed each other. We developed language not just to share information, but to share feelings. Dr. Yuna added her scientific perspective. What makes humans unique is that they never lost the ability to embrace contradiction. They can be logical and emotional at the same time, individual and collective, practical and idealistic. But how is that an advantage? Counselor Kess demanded. Contradiction should lead to inefficiency and confusion. Nagyong smiled, and somehow that simple expression conveyed more meaning than most species could communicate with hours of complex speech. Because the universe itself is contradictory, she said. Reality is messy and unpredictable and full of problems that don't have perfect solutions. Most species try to impose order on that chaos. Humans learn to dance with it instead. The council chamber fell silent as they processed this idea. Let me give you an example, Nagyong continued. Yesterday, a human child named Donghyuk was teaching some young aliens how to play a game. A simple game that we call tag. Do you know what happened? She didn't wait for an answer. The alien children couldn't understand the rules at first. Imbir. Tag, you try to catch other players, but when you catch them, they become the one trying to catch you. You compete and cooperate at the same time. You win by losing, and lose by winning. Dr. Nexus, the station philosopher, stood up. That makes no logical sense. Exactly, Nagyong agreed. But watch what happened when they learned to play. The holographic display showed footage of the children playing tag in one of the station's recreation areas. Young Krathari, Nexari, and Hegemony children were running around together, laughing and shouting with joy. They stopped thinking about winning and losing, Nagyong explained. They started thinking about having fun together. The game taught them that sometimes the best outcomes happen when you stop trying to optimize for a specific result. She looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives. That's what humans do. We play games that don't make sense. We help people who can't help us back. We hope for things that probably won't happen. We love beings who will someday die. We choose to be happy even when logic says we should be afraid. Counselor Vex's tentacles curled with confusion. But why? What evolutionary advantage does that provide? Because, Nagyong said softly, it makes life worth living. Doctor, Yuna stepped forward with her final analysis. What we learned is that humans represent something the galaxy has never seen before. Not just intelligence, but wisdom. Not just survival, but joy. Not just existence, but meaning. She manipulated the display to show comparative studies from across the galaxy. Every civilization that is integrated with humans shows the same improvements, not because humans are superior, but because they remind other species of possibilities they had forgotten. They show that you can be efficient and kind, logical and compassionate, strong and gentle. Are you saying, Counselor Thrain asked, slowly, that we have been thinking about intelligence wrong this entire time? We're saying that intelligence without heart is just complicated stupidity, Nagyong replied. And heart without intelligence is just good intentions. Humans learned to combine both. She walked closer to the council seats, looking directly at the representatives. You asked what even is a human. Here's your answer. A human is a being who chooses to care about things that don't make sense to care about, who tries to make things better even when better seems impossible, who finds reasons to laugh even when there are plenty of reasons to cry. The chamber was completely quiet now. Every representative was focused on Nagyong's words. Humans are proof that the universe is not just about survival or efficiency or logical optimization. It's about connection. It's about finding meaning in temporary existence. It's about being brave enough to love things that you will eventually lose. She paused, letting that sink in. What makes a human is the willingness to be beautifully, wonderfully, impossibly alive in a universe that seems designed to make that as difficult as possible. Dr. Yuna concluded the presentation with one final observation. The question, what even is a human, may be unanswerable, because humans represent something new in the universe's equation. They are living proof that intelligence can evolve beyond pure logic into something that includes wisdom, compassion, and hope. As the session ended and the representatives began to file out, many of them were asking themselves new questions. Not about humans, but about their own species. About what they might become if they learned to embrace contradiction the way humans did. In the end, the galaxy never did fully understand what made humans so special. But they learned something more valuable. They learned that maybe the point wasn't to understand humans. Maybe the point was to become more human themselves. And across the galaxy, on hundreds of worlds, beings began to discover what that might mean. They began to hope for impossible things, to care about strangers, to find joy in simple moments, to choose love over logic when love was what the universe needed. The question, what even is a human, remained unanswered. But perhaps that was The most human thing of all,